Good morning, and welcome to Catalyst Virtual Thought Leadership Webinar. My name is Dave Mason, and I am the Director of Sales for our company. I realize that today is Veterans Day, and on behalf of all of us at Catalyst, we would like to thank all of our veterans for their military service. We are all very grateful. For some, this is your first interaction with Catalyst. For others, you know us quite well. For those that don't know our company, we are the Northwest premier commercial furniture provider and have been in business for over 38 years. Our company stands out amongst a sea of commercial furniture companies in our region. Catalyst truly differentiates ourselves with our creative and collaborative approach to each individual client. We strive to become a trusted advisor for all customers by using a frictionless and efficient process. These thought leadership webinars are an opportunity for us to share the latest in trends and ideas, and we are thrilled that you have taken the time out of your busy schedules to join us today. Today, we are launching our Catalyst Thought Leadership Discussions, an interactive network experience, which I will introduce in a little bit. Please take note of the chat feature in the section below. This is how we will be reporting out after the breakout sessions. Also, there is a very short survey at the end of the webinar. If you would take 60 seconds to answer the short list of questions that will pop up prior to hitting the leave button, we would greatly appreciate it. If you are like many of the companies with whom we've been talking with over the past few months, you and your teams have invested years cultivating an effective culture, one that is both strategically relevant because it prioritizes behaviors essential to the success of your business, as well as strong in the sense that employees trust that it is real and they value it. Such cultures help companies attract and retain great people and contribute to fantastic bottom line performance. These plans have been challenged in the past 8 months and have begged us to answer the following question: how can you continue to build and leverage your culture while your organization is operating mostly remotely? Here to answer that very question is our friend Linda Wagener. The format of today's webinar is focused on small, interactive breakout sessions that will allow you to learn from like-minded folks like each other from our industry. You will have the chance to collaborate in smaller groups and do a report out via the chat feature once we're back together. For those that don't know Linda, she is Blink's Chief Culture Officer and has over 35 years of organizational leadership, consultation, training, and research experience. She is an expert in the areas of organizational culture, leadership, and team dynamics. Linda is committed to building resilient work cultures that enhance employee engagement and productivity. A Minnesota native, Linda received her doctorate in psychology at Clark University. Linda's work has been published in various scholarly journals. She was an academic psychologist for 25 years before co-founding Marigold & Associates, an organizational consultancy. One of Linda's commitments is to provide training and counseling on resilience and trauma to international aid workers living and working in fragile and hostile contexts. Linda enjoys travel, movies, books, skiing, and hiking. Linda is the executive producer of the documentary Once There Was a War, which examines young people's capacity to flourish in Bosnia, Central Asia, and Iraq. With that, I'll turn it over to Linda.
Thank you, Dave. Good morning. I see some really familiar names on this grid, as well as some new people. I wish we could be together in person, face to face. I am finding that one of the things that's most difficult for me in this remote work is not having the chance to meet with new people. In fact, I was jogging down the street in my neighborhood and I saw someone I didn't recognize and I went, oh, it's so good to see a strange face. It hardly ever happens anymore. But it's a pleasure to talk with you about this long haul of remote work. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you. You should be able to see it. So if you all remember way back in March when we first went into lockdown, if you were like many of us, you thought, oh, this will be a few weeks and then we'll get back to normal. but those few weeks, of course, have turned into months. And what we have found is that it has remarkably changed the way that we do work, as well as our work culture. And now we're beginning to think about the ways in which some of the changes might be a permanent sea change in the way that we work remotely with each other. I know at Blink, we're anticipating that even once we can return to the office environment, it will be quite different, as our people have really found working remotely has been a valuable impact on their productivity. It's actually increased, not decreased. But this changing frame time from weeks to months has impacted our companies and our employees, some ways that we might expect and other ways that are quite surprising. One of the places that we've looked for expertise is to NASA. NASA is one of our Blink clients. We do a lot of user experience work for NASA, rebuilding their websites and helping them think about how to best get their information out to the public. But NASA also is an expert in remote work in confined spaces over long periods of time. Think about it, for over 50 years, they've been thinking about what it's like for an astronaut to be in space, sometimes in isolation, other times in a small team. And their psychologists have studied this quite extensively, and they've come up with a list of what they call expeditionary behaviors that help their teams to do well in the deep reach of space. One of their astronauts was interviewed recently about his first experience of being isolated in a space capsule. And he talked about the period of 4 months just being incredibly difficult. Like the first 4 months were okay, and then it just got harder and harder. He had to make some new adjustments in that longer time frame. And then he made those adjustments and kept going. And then he said the hardest time of all was the last week, when he knew that soon he would be released from isolation. And I think a lot of us now are feeling like we want to be in that last week when we can finally go back into public. But today we want to have time to think about and discuss sort of the long haul issues that you've been facing in your organizations, and how the different solutions that you've come up with to keep your positive culture. So we have a couple critical challenges. Of course, in the beginning, for a lot of us, the first challenge was just to keep the doors open for our businesses to survive in a very radically changed economic climate. When it's not clear how we're going to survive, how we're going to keep from going bankrupt, that takes our total focus on just solving that problem. And we know that many businesses have had to lay people off or slash expenses or come up with a whole new way of doing business in order to keep the doors open. And when we're facing those kinds of concerns, it almost seems like a luxury to think about the second issue of how do we maintain our culture. But of course, our business culture is critical for our long-term survival. And it's also been under threat, our cultures, in some cases by the very decisions we had to make in order for our businesses to survive, right? So if you have to lay people off or eliminate bonuses or raises or cancel employee perks, even in some ways, the social network that binds our employees together and that creates our culture has been threatened. And so we have a lot of these threats, and perhaps the biggest one has been the absence of that face-to-face time outside of our scheduled meetings. So for the next hour, we're going to give you time to talk with each other about the difficulties you're facing in your culture, and also hear about the things that you're doing to maintain your culture, those things that have been working for you. We hope that you'll be able to share those with the people in your discussion groups. So I'll be beginning in several cases to talk about some practices that we know from our research undergird business culture. Then we'll give you a time to spend time discussing those in your discussion groups. Then we'll ask you to come back to the larger group and use the chat function to pose those questions and comments to the group as a whole. So we'll begin with introductions. Our administrator, Cindy Chesborough, is going to sort you now into your breakout groups. And those, for the most part, will be the groups that you'll continue with throughout our session today. I would like to remind you that when you get to your breakout group, please share your video. And we're going to test this now, this breakout function, and give you some time to introduce yourselves and also briefly describe the most significant challenge you've faced this year. So you have about 10 minutes now to do that. Would be an opportunity now to use the chat function to share out what you're hearing from each other about the biggest challenges. Just use one word or short phrases, but go ahead and use that chat function to hear what you've heard from each other.
Yeah, so there's a lot. So the first one is says missing smiles under masks. It's a big deal. Face-to-face interaction. Empathy, showing empathy is critical. Missing in-person collaboration. People are missing people. Going digital with work is a big one. There's another one for empathy. Quicker IT adoption. It's hard for new hires to kind of pick up and start. Getting in front of clients, smiles. That's the third time I've seen smiles. Managing work meetings and engagement with small kids and at home creates complex challenges for parents. So that's, the list goes on and on.
Fantastic. Yes, thank you. All right, we're going to talk about 6 key principles that underlie employee well-being. Is one of them. Sharing information and enhancing collaboration. So those are 3 practices, cultural practices, that we all need to be paying attention to in this time as well as any other time. So think for a minute, what have you done to do a good job of sharing information across your company? Do you include information about organizational health? Does your information keep your values alive, underlying those values? And are you using your technology or whatever means to manage change through this very dynamic period of time? So a second area to pay attention to is employee well-being. How are you paying attention to your physical, mental, and emotional health of yourself and your colleagues? How are you arranging to have some additional social support? So for example, at Blink, we have been having happy hours where we play trivia games together, as an example. And how also are you keeping your people anchored in meaning and purpose that they get from your work? And then how are you enhancing collaboration? What are the tools and processes you're using? Collaboration for problem solving, collaboration for creativity. So keep these 3 areas in mind. We're going to return to your breakout rooms and give you an opportunity to talk about the things you're doing that work. All right, welcome back. So now, using the chat function, let's share some ideas we have about how we have been sharing information with each other in this remote time. All right, so the Teams channel, water cooler, using boards, email, Slack, so lots of technology. Have you noticed how important it is that our technology works well? We're really finding that user experience and user interface is particularly important to make sure. So Teams, chat, trivia nights, right? Mural boards, looking for deeper connection, right? How about, and daily stand-ups? Those have become quite common as well. We've even been having those kind of casual meetings that used to happen by the water cooler. Now we schedule them, but they happen, still those casual meetings. And some people are really seeing some positive things in here. So let's talk about employee well-being. Some of you have already started to move into that idea. Mental health days, quiet weeks, happy hour, open conversation. Anything else that you're doing for employee well-being? Quiet weeks, light meeting Fridays. Yeah, we're doing an experiment with light meeting Wednesdays, bringing in therapists, mental health resources. We've been doing Blink Breathes, which is a shared meditation. We've been doing 3 minutes of exercise at 3. Encouraging people to look for ways to exercise. Yeah. Home office stipend for office setup, that's great. We've gotten requests for that as well. Activities for kids at home. There's that special tension with kids, with families who have kids at home, no matter what age they are, preschooler, teenagers, there are issues, right? Welcoming children into meetings, that's great to say hi to them. And how about the last area, enhancing collaboration? Anybody have some good ideas there for both creativity and problem solving? We've used a technology called Mural Board to do what we used to do in our face-to-face workshops, where you can still pin Post-it notes. Canvas whiteboards, good. Making sure you have your weekly check-ins with your teams. Mentimeter, what is that? Sounds fascinating. Sounds like something to do with mentoring. All right, well, thank you everyone for your shared ideas. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen again and talk about the next 3 areas of critical cultural practice, which are management, of course. How do we continue to make sure that we mentor ongoing work? How are we helping our teams set their priorities and goals? Have you done anything to adjust expectations? We did early on, and again midway, and again later, we talked with our teams about their reducing their expectations for productivity. And making sure that people understood that that was not something that was abnormal or unusual. So wondering what you guys are doing there. Wondering how you're continuing to maintain your training and development. So employee development, professional development. Our employees haven't been able to go to professional conferences like they once did. How are you doing? Is there been any changes in the way you're doing feedback and reviews or nurturing the careers of your people? And then hiring. Hiring remotely has definitely been a change. We have lots of new employees at Blink that we haven't ever met face-to-face. So they had to go through the whole hiring and interviewing process remotely, the whole onboarding process remotely. So in your breakout groups, let's talk about the things you guys are doing in these 3 areas that you're finding have really worked in this remote time. All right, so see you in a bit. I can see your faces again. I'm going to put you all on gallery view now. All right, so using the chat function again, let's share what we found that works in these areas of management, training and development, and hiring. What are the things you're all doing? So lots of meetings. Anyone else have any ideas? Have any of you been doing any specific trainings this year? So for example, at Blink this year, we've been doing unconscious bias training. And what we've done is use an e-learning course from Microsoft with lots of videos. And we've broken up into groups of about 6 to 10 people and gone through the training together. We're just about through the entire company at this point. So that's one of the things that we've been doing. In terms of hiring, we made sure that everyone had specialized interview training, since the interviews were done remotely. It was a good time to freshen up people's interviewing skills. Any other thoughts that people have had?
One of the things that was discussed in our group, Linda, was the stigma before COVID about working from home, and how that's been now removed, that you can be just as efficient working from home as you can in the office, and efficient.
Absolutely. Yeah. We're finding that when we have everybody remote, it's easier not to ignore the people who were remote. Do you understand what I'm saying? We were either all together or all remote. It works great. What's harder is the mix of some people together and other people on the conference screen. So we're hoping that when we go back, we can keep our good etiquette about including people remotely, not forgetting that they're there. So we have people being relaxed about expectations and productivity, making sure to reach out and introduce themselves to new employees. That's great, Penny, good to hear that. New possibilities for remote. All right. Well, we're wrapping up our time. I'm just wondering, anybody have any last minute questions? No? All right, well, thank you all very much for participating and being the guinea pigs in this first remote lunch and learn session. As I see some faces I miss quite a lot, and hope we get to meet someday in the not too distant future face to face again. Appreciate your participation. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda, for participating. We greatly appreciate it. As always, gave us a lot to think about. So thank you very much. And don't forget to fill out the survey that should pop up right before you click the leave button. If you wouldn't mind giving us some feedback, there it is. It just popped up on my screen. So thank you very much for taking the time to fill that out, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks all.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.